that there are people who are interested in your recovery and are supporting you in your recovery. And even when you fail, they're still there. They haven't rejected you. They haven't abandoned you. You're not being criticized.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen it in our groups or friends around us, like, I'm going to do it my way. And 6 months later, they're often in a worse place or more hurt. And they come back like, okay, I kept trying it my way. I guess maybe I need to acknowledge I need some help.
To tell you the truth, until I die, I don't want to get off of this journey. And that is how I have transformed my passion from the addiction to the healing.
It reveals that we were just looking for the quick fix. And if I got a little bit of sobriety, like, I don't really want to risk, I don't really want to change, I just want the quick fix for the behavior. And that puts us in overconfidence that quickly leads, as Harry brought up, to all those other pieces, because we're already moving away from trusting God and trusting others. Hello there, good listener. I am your host, Nick Stumbo, and you are listening to the Pure Desire Podcast, your biblically based and clinically informed approach to healing from betrayal and breaking free from all forms of compulsive sexual behavior. And whether today is your first day in recovery or your 10,000, we hope to have conversations that maybe you've never gotten to hear before, and that it will be a blessing and an encouragement to you. Today is episode 450, and here joining me as my co-host for this brand new series is the one and only Mr. Stuart Blade. Stuart, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Nick. Good to be here.
We've had you on before. You've been a co-host before,
Yeah.
So listeners might know that you're a part of the PD staff.
That's correct.
And you oversee our online men's groups and leaders. And you get to be a part of this series that we're launching today on avoiding relapse in later recovery.
Yeah. Well, by this time, I've made it over a year on PD staff, so celebrating
Congratulations,
that. Absolutely.
You're still here.
Yep.
Way to go.
And then what a great topic that we get to dive into of just like, what does long-term recovery look like in the lives of those who are maybe utilizing our PD resources or not, and just they're checking out the PD podcast.
Yeah, well, and this series was really born because of a reality we see that men and women can do some incredible work in early recovery, feel like, man, I've figured out the key, the secret, I'm nailing recovery, and they go along for maybe a year or even several years, and over time maybe slip back into old patterns. And our founder, Dr. Ted Roberts, was working with a lot of men in that season, and he was starting to put together, like, there's some commonalities here in their story, and that is these next 5 episodes that we're going to do on how to avoid relapse. And what it's really the heart of it is, how do we create a lifetime of healing and recovery and not just a good season?
Yeah.
And so today's episode is the first of 5, and today's topic is pursuing health with less passion than we pursued the addiction. And we could think of no one better to be on for our first episode than the great Harry Flanagan.
Yeah, near and dear to my heart is Harry. I can remember my first time being introduced to Harry, and what a warm presence to be entered into. And so you'll experience that again in this episode.
Yeah, and I know that Harry also has seen many men and women walking in that same place of, I thought I was good, and why am I back here? And he really underlines some deeply fundamental principles and some mindsets that I think are so important. And so, again, whether you are in that place of, hey, I'm a couple years into recovery and I'm doing well, or maybe you're at the beginning of your story and you're asking that question, how do I make sure this isn't just for a time, but like this is a new normal for me? I think you're going to get a ton of insight from today's episode.
Absolutely.
So a little bit about Harry Flanagan. He is a clinician here at Pure Desire Ministries and a certified pastoral sex addiction professional through ITAP. He has been with Pure Desire, as we found out today, since 1993, first for his own story, and then a part of the team as it was launched at East Hill Church with Dr. Ted and Diane Roberts. Harry is a licensed pastor who has served in the ministry for 30 plus years and has been a contributing author to our resources, 7 Pillars of Freedom, as well as Connected, Building a Bridge to Intimacy. So here now is part 1 of 5 in our new series, Avoiding Relapse and Later Recovery, in our conversation with Harry Flanagan on how pursuing health with less passion than we pursued the addiction is a challenge to our recovery. Mr. Harry Flanagan, Father Flanagan to some, welcome back to the podcast. It's good to see you, my friend.
I knew you were going to bring up Father Flanagan, so I was thinking of the Nashville Nugget twins, over here, because you two look so much alike.
Oh. So why the Nuggets? Because we're young guys?
I was actually thinking of scriptural nuggets.
Oh. Well, so we'll try to provide that, and you provide all the wise fatherly advice that we need.
Yes.
Because this is an important topic as we kick off this new series, and really trying to help people understand why, even after doing some really good work in initial recovery, maybe they found sobriety, they feel like their pattern's changing. We'll have men and women say, I've never gone this long without relapsing. This is so encouraging. But then they'll find there are other issues that might continue to plague them or be a challenge. And one of those is today's topic, is ways in which that we pursue health with less passion than we pursued the addiction or our pattern. What do we mean when we say that someone is pursuing health with less passion than they pursued their addiction?
Well, we can't compare the experience of the addiction, because there is the drugs that are released in the high of the addiction are euphoric in nature. And addicts are always going to be driven, an addictive personality will always be driven for immediate gratification, where the healing process requires us to have delayed gratification. And so the experience is not euphoric when we are battling with the cravings of the addiction. So we have to recognize that it's what drives our choices. And it comes back to, I would take one step back and say it's about effort. Are we putting in a similar effort towards the healing process as we were doing it to live out the addiction? And part of that is tied to, as addicts, we want that immediate gratification. And in the healing process, healing comes through delayed gratification. And that is frustrating for people with addictive personalities. And where are they in the healing process? Because in general terms, there's 4 levels to the addictive process. Number 1, the highest, is when we are in restoration or recovery. Number 2 is we've been tootling along in restoration and we have a lapse. One time we act out. And we say, what the heck are we doing here? We go back to recovery or restoration. 3 is episodal relapses, where there is a pattern to the acting out. It may be payday. It may be, for whatever reason, every 3 weeks. Or it might be the weekend. Whatever the pattern is, there is a pattern to why we act out. And then the 4th level, and I love this, they call it collapse. And collapse is when I give my life over to live to fulfill the addiction. And I know in my story, I had days where I was in collapse, where I was living to fulfill the addiction. And so the process that we get into is understanding that the passion really comes down to what's motivating me to change. Because some people come and they're here out of obligation, and they can maintain sobriety for a while, but eventually there's a lack of rewards for them. And they'll end up relapsing. Or I had one client initially say, change is too hard.
At least they named it.
They did name it. And for change is too hard, you have to begin to explore with them what's so hard about the change. And it's their belief, maybe. I had one guy in the first group back in 1993. in my first group, I had a fellow who said that I'm ambivalent. I don't know if I want to change or not. And he was a single fella, so he didn't have the gift of a concerned wife.
Pressure.
Yeah. And so here we are with Ted's statement about pursuing the same passion. We're really comparing apples and oranges. And so I want to bring it down to what discovering what is driving them. Motivation is everything for us, and especially for those of us who come out of Western civilization, there's a huge element where it is about performance, and many of the offended spouses, be it the husband or the wife, expect perfection. We don't want relapses, but in reality, if the client that we have or the small group member that we have, if they discover a truth about why they relapsed and when they went through their relapse analysis, why did this happen? If they learn something, it's part of the healing process.
Yeah.
If they're still just repeating the same old patterns over and over again, then they haven't learned anything.
Harry, what I get from what you're saying there, which you said effort, and I'll change mine to energy. Like, it's a mismatch of energy. And so you reframing it of like the euphoric experience is vastly different than the working. I mean,
yeah, they're like, totally different brain systems.
They're absolutely different. But what I think of a story of my own. My wife had signed us up. It was something like the fun shop or something like that. You take your kids to the fun shop, and she watched me and was like, "You are like a curmudgeon. Like, we are at the fun shop." And in the heat of my addiction, I couldn't even experience like fun with my kids, and that was like one of those moments for my wife, like, this is pivotal for me to be asking questions like, what is going on with you? Like, you can't be here in this moment and be fun with your kids. Like, what is happening? And I just think about like what you shared there. Like, yeah, I was on the euphoric drive, and this was taking me away from the addiction. And so just naturally, two things are at war with one another.
And you used a great word, Stuart.
Thank you.
Because it is the renewing of the mind is about reframing.
Yeah,
you've got to challenge that inner narrative that has led you to this craving and desire, because the limbic system is driving the boat at that point. Yeah. It's not your conscious brain. In fact, the latest studies from Auburn University tell us that the limbic system only shares with the conscious brain about 5% of all the thoughts,
wow,
the
that
memories,
little guy.
and the emotions that are created limbically. And so for us to think that we are rational, logical beings, and we find ourselves doing behaviors that go against every value that we have to begin to have this tension between recognizing we are complicit in the choices that we make that cause so much pain to ourselves and those whom we love.
Yeah.
But we also need to be curious about what drove us to those behaviors and have compassion for that addictive personality that began when we were, in my case, it began when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And that comes back to an examination of the family of origin. And so we think that what we are aware of with our conscious brain, if we can control that, we're going to make great decisions, but we're ignoring the rest of the brain. That is actually when your heartbeat gets close to 90 to 100 times a minute, the limbic system is in full control of your brain. When you're feeling high levels of stress, when you're in pain, when you have anxiety or fear, you're being hypervigilant. Your limbic system is in charge of your being. And we have to learn how to retrain the limbic system so that we can be in harmony between what we're consciously trying to accomplish and what the limbic system is doing.
That's right. Yeah, and that's why we talk a lot about the brain, and we'll dive into some of these strategies of what we need to address. But I think you used a good word when you said it's about motive. Because if our motive has been pursuing the high or something we feel, or maybe we've made an idol of sex or sexual expression, that motive has to change to something else, of like being the kind of man or woman that we want to be, having the family we long for, and kind of having a larger vision for life. But underneath that, I also think there are times appropriately we need to be challenged or have someone else lovingly challenge us to say, when it came to your addiction, you were willing to be so creative, like in how you hid behaviors, how you deceived or lied to other people, how you got away with things, or even, I look back, especially, when I grew up, and even more so for you, Harry, you had to be a lot more creative just how to find pornography.
Yeah.
Where now, unfortunately, it's at the tip of your finger at any button on your phone. But that level of like, how can I find this? And we'd put all this effort into it. And then we get into recovery and it's like, oh, it's a lot of work. Or, oh, it's a lot of time. Like, how many hours would you spend in a binge relapse cycle? Like, quite a lot of hours. And 30 minutes a day of homework's too much. Like, so sometimes that sobering reality of, okay, or the other side will get of like, oh, this is so expensive. And yet, in their story, they were paying thousands of dollars for trips or escorts or whatever.
Yeah.
But now when oh, it's so expensive. And sometimes it's calling our own bluff. It's like, it's a smokescreen, because what we're actually saying is this work is uncomfortable, it's painful, it invites me into places where I feel like I have to risk, and that's all like a foreign language. And so, yeah, maybe over here in my addiction, I spent a lot more time, energy, and money, but it's what I knew. And I think that's what we have to realize is this is a call to let go of what was comfortable and unhealthy in order to engage in something that is much better for us. But we need to bring the same level of ingenuity, creativity, even time and money to make it happen. Because otherwise it's a bit like throwing teaspoonfuls of water at a raging fire. Like, well, maybe it'll go out with this little spoonful. Like, no, if you have a raging fire, you bring in the big fire trucks, right? And the big hoses. And if you've been in relapse, if you've been in addiction, like, bring in the fire trucks. And that's about your effort, your commitment to the process. And sometimes we have to be willing to step it up if we're going to see freedom really take place.
In an addiction, there is no status quo. We are always wanting to have a similar experience as to our first encounter. And because we like newness, unique things, we have to increase the intensity of the addiction to get somewhere near what we felt when we started experiencing it. But Jeff Van Vonderen, a therapist who has been online on a show called Intervention, but when I met Jeff, he was in Minneapolis, and he came out to our local church here in Gresham on a regular basis. And he said that when the cycle is over, after you have relapsed and the dopamine adrenaline cocktail has worn off, you find yourself emotionally lower with guilt and shame, over your behavior, your acting out behavior, than you did before you entered into acting out. So you have this high mountain
like a
experience,
self-defeating
and then,
cycle.
The cycle that takes you down, and the pattern is that continue going down. So you have to amp up the addiction. So we get into a pattern. We're finding some success, but the limbic system, that is a very slow learner, is trying to give you cravings to go back to what worked in the past, because temporarily the addiction works. Long term it doesn't work, but short term it works. And so the limbic system is saying, you in its amoral mentality, you need to act out. So you have to amp up your process of pursuing healing. And a big part of this is the difference. The difference begins with when people have addictive personalities, they crave isolation, not solitude.
Yeah.
And isolation is when you're trying to escape a part of your life that is so painful, you feel like you can't stand it anymore. It's so the guilt or the shame or the physical or emotional pain that you have is so overwhelming, you just want relief. So you act out. But in the healing process, the passion comes through community. And one of the proud moments for me here at Pure Desire, because I've been involved with this now for 32 years total, my own healing, and then becoming part of the team that eventually became Pure Desire. It is the joy of being in community where you are known for who you are and you are still being loved. I remember my first group I led. I had because of the time of year we're recording this, here in December. I invited the wives to a Pure Desire small group Christmas party. And we exchanged elephant gifts and we had a good time. And all 6 of the wives called me up and said, why are we being invited to come to a sexual addiction group? And they showed up, and the wives started to make connections with the other wives. And I stopped in the middle of that meeting, and I gave encouragement and kudos to every guy in the group. And the wives had not heard their husbands being complimented by pastors or someone they thought was a pastor, but they were making those compliments. They were hearing those compliments, and they were discovering that the other guys seemed really normal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden their changes were made, and the wives came out and said to me as they were leaving, when can we do this again? Because they're realizing the benefit of community for their husbands, and they saw the benefit for themselves to connect with other wives who were going through a similar thing.
Yeah, that's awesome, Harry. How does this mindset or approach potentially lead to continued patterns of relapses?
Well, again, if you find yourself not having the positive reinforcement, your wife is still angry at you, your husband is distant and withdrawn from you, then we have to pay attention to that internal narrative of the limbic system that goes 24/7 in our minds. Even when we're in deep sleep, it's there. What are you telling yourself? What is the story that you're saying? And that's when we come back to the reframing. And I have to admit to the two of you that I am an avowed reductionist. I try to simplify everything. Ted loves when Ted and I were writing the 7 Pillars book, he loved going into the great detail. And I was trying to say, how can we say this in 1 or 2
Harry
sentences?
with the 1-page lessons.
Yeah,
I had
exactly.
to tell Harry once, I was like, Harry, you're the only man I know that can cover love, forgiveness, and he had like grace. It was like the chapter was love, grace, and healing, and it was 1 page. And I'm like, no one else I know would try to cover those 3 topics in 1 page. So I can attest, you're a minimalist.
That is who I am. But reframing in simple terms is saying, in this circumstance, what value do I have that I want to live out? What's the value? Then secondly, what attitude should I have that will support my value? And then what behavior is supporting my attitude and my value?
Yeah.
And last is expectations. Well, our good friend who died last year, Michael Dye, Michael taught me that you can't change people, places, or things. You can only change yourself. That's on page 19 of the Genesis process in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
So you can't change people, places, or things. So the expectation is not about how the circumstances change, but about me changing. My learning to live out my values instead of being driven by my emotions and my limbic system, the seat of those emotions, that takes me back to an addictive mindset. I have to learn how to live out my values as a follower of Christ. And for some people that come to Pure Desire, they are actually nominally Christian. And a part of what will help them in the small group is in our small groups and in our counseling, we have to remind people that we are a faith-based organization and that it's important that people begin to develop a deep relationship with Christ, the invisible God, who has never shown up, and they are confused by that when they have been listening to the culture that says your values by performance, or their wife is saying, if you make one more mistake, the marriage is over, and they're trying to live out perfection, and they can't. So they have to try to deceive their wife because that is what they believe the wife actually wants. You just behaviorally conform and I'll be happy. And when you get to control in number 4 of this series,
foreshadowing.
Yeah. There you go. And he smiled. So again, you are the twins.
The twinning.
Yeah,
it's happening.
there we go.
You're unruly twins over here.
We find themselves. We stop trying to challenge that story that we're telling ourselves. And we have to embrace both our strengths and our weaknesses. Some people come into counseling thinking that they're just weak, that they can't do anything. And some try to come in with bravado. But what we want is authenticity, which involves acknowledging our strengths and our weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah, when I think of how this mindset of bringing less to recovery than we did to the addiction, what the phrase that comes to mind is doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I know at the beginning of my own recovery, that's kind of what I wanted to do. The internal question was like, what's the bare minimum I have to do to make my wife happy, to make my counselor happy? And there's something in us that I think as I look back, it was fear. I was afraid that I couldn't do the work, or the person that said, change is hard, or it's too hard, or I don't know if I can do it. And so if I only invest the bare minimum, I'm also only risking the bare minimum.
Yep.
But it's a bit like saying, what's the bare minimum I can invest to go skydiving? It's like the question doesn't even make sense, because it's like, well, either you're going to jump out of the plane or you're not. And if you're not willing to jump, you're not skydiving.
Yeah.
So there is, and we encourage people, there's kind of this all-in mindset of, I'm going to let go of what I know and what I'm protecting and what I think I know or what I would like to do, and I'm just going to trust the process. I'm going to follow the group material. I'm going to do it all because I'm looking to change my life, and it's an all-in kind of approach. It also makes me think of the story of Peter in the Gospels when Jesus calls him out of the boat, and it says the water was choppy and there was fear. I'm sure if he'd have clung on to the railing of that boat, he would never have walked towards Jesus. And some of us are doing that in our addiction. Like, we both want Jesus to call us to risk and change, but we got a firm grip on the boat railing of like, can I really let go of this way of life? Can I really change? Do I really want, even the person that said I'm apathetic, do I actually want to change?
Yeah.
We have to address some of that and go, you know what? If that's where I'm at, it's probably not going to happen. I'm probably not going to jump. I'm not going to skydive, because I'm only doing what keeps me safe and comfortable, and that's not the zone where change happens. Back to what our good friend Michael Dye says, risk is change. Change is fear, and it all goes together, and we've got to be willing to face those things if we're actually going to change in a deep way.
And your example of Peter is really good, because when you talk to young Christians, they're confused with Peter saying to Jesus, if that's you, call me out of the boat. But what if that wasn't Jesus? What's the enemy going to do for us? Yeah, we want you out of the boat.
Yeah.
And then you drown.
Drown you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we fear what we don't know. We've learned to survive what we do know. So these people who are coming to us in our small groups or listening to our podcasts or are actually involved with the counseling, they have to be willing to be all in on change, but you have to challenge that, again, that internal narrative. So we used something that Michael had created called the Faster Relapse Awareness Scale. And I run into clients all the time who think, if I'm only in forgetting priorities, or I'm only in anxiety, I'm not so bad.
I'm just going to hang out here on this performance scale.
Yeah. And they think that there is a big difference between those two and relapse. But the truth is, the entire Faster scale is about us moving away from God and trusting our ability to navigate these situations and circumstances that we can survive at for a while, but eventually is going to crush us. And so it is in the Faster scale, it's about, am I moving toward God, having the attitude and the actions that are reflected in restoration or recovery, or am I going down the Faster scale because I am still trying to say, I can do this without you, God. I'm leaning on myself to get through this. And so everyone tells us when we first start talking to them about the Faster scale, they think they can go from restoration to relapse instantly. And the truth is, Michael's research showed that it was 2.5 or 3 weeks to up to 6 weeks that it takes to actually go down the scale. So we're not inwardly aware of what's actually happening in our
how
soul.
much we've run through those.
Yeah. And so what we have to do is help people know that this healing process is not a quick fix, but it is rewarding. But the reward is not going to be that euphoria of the the sexual climax for men or women caught in sexual addiction. It's the gift of relationships.
Yeah.
That there are people who are interested in your recovery and are supporting you in your recovery. And even when you fail, they're still there. They haven't rejected you. They haven't abandoned you. You're not being criticized.
Yeah. Well, playfully, since you used a firefighting analogy earlier, I'm going to use a running analogy, having never run a marathon.
And I've never tried to put out the house ablaze. So.
You stole my script, Nick. So I think about, like, when I'm coming to this, it would be as if you've run many marathons in your life, and then you just decide, like, years down the road, like, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about, like, what are the brain bugs that keep us, and just that idea that without doing anything for years, and you would go back out and perform at the level you once did without any sort of training, that's not realistic. And so that idea is, like, this is a constant. It like your description of somebody saying, I was in restoration and then I was in relapse. Were you really in restoration?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Like, are you the self-awareness to say, did you have no secrets? Were you living life on God's terms? Like, those are the realities. So was it really a restoration to relapse regression? Or might there be somewhere else on the faster scale that was truly defining?
Yeah.
And it's that awareness that we need to come to and remain in throughout this. Like, the lack of self-awareness, I think, is our crippling approach.
And I can tell you from experience that if you try to go out and run the marathon like you used to, what I would say is you end up getting hurt.
Oh,
because you don't have the ability you think you do. And that actually relates a lot to this. We think we can do it without God, or we think, I can do it faster, or I can do it my own way. And we've watched people try. I mean, we've all seen it in our groups or friends around us, like, I'm going to do it my way. And 6 months later, they're often in a worse place or more hurt, and they come back like, okay, I kept trying it my way. I guess maybe I need to acknowledge I need some help. And that, I think, leads right into this third question, because as we've talked about this, Harry, it is about, like, we're looking for a new motive, we're looking for a new vision of life. And so if someone is approaching their healing or recovery with a lot less effort, they're just trying to do the bare minimum, what might they be missing in that mindset? What might they be missing in their recovery journey if they're just trying to do the bare minimum?
Yeah, Nick, that is such a great question, because the bare minimum is I'm trying to pretend. I'm trying to pretend to my spouse and those people who are watching me that are important to me. I'm pretending to do something. But there is a belief underneath it that either says, I don't want to change, or they're saying, I can't change, or it's too difficult to give it up. The first leader of For Men Only, the forerunner to Pure Desire, a good friend of mine named Scott, he said to me that when I gave up masturbation, I lost my best friend. It had helped me through the trauma of a horrible circumstance in my family of origin. It had helped me through a marriage and a divorce that was not related to my addiction. And now I'm facing that I've got to give this behavior up. And I'm feeling like I'll be alone. I'm going to be at a loss.
And what do I do with the pain?
Yeah. And again, because addictive personalities thrive on the oxymoron of isolation. it feels the safest place we can be because there's no one looking over our shoulder, but it's the place we have the less discipline, and we end up doing harm to ourselves. Like you're trying to run a marathon without training for it, and you are trying to escape your life, and you don't do that in community.
Yeah.
In community, which is a part of the healing goal. I tell all the clients that this is about your learning to live in community. I have a group of men that my old pastor Keith Jenkins used to call Over the Hill Club, and they show up at my house every Monday, and I do mean every Monday, New Year's, Christmas, 4th of July, whatever. If it's on a Monday, they'll show up in my house. And we have mutual accountability, though most of the people in that group aren't battling with sexual addiction, but they're battling with something.
Yeah.
And when you have a team of people who are there for you, and they're calling up and checking on you, you know that you're not only going to let your spouse down, your kids down. You have these men who are devoting time and energy every week, and that's what happens in our pure desire groups.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We have men who are devoting time and energy, making accountability phone calls, and so you have to look back. Am I isolating? Am I telling myself a non-truth? Is it a confabulation to me? A confabulation is something that's false that you believe is true. Okay, you have to challenge that inner narrative, the stories that you're telling yourself, because our limbic system functions, our brain functions off a story. When our 5 senses feed into the hippocampus, it's our data center, and it just shares the data with the amygdala, with the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex, and one other part of the brain we don't need to get into today, creates context for the story. And the limbic system thinks the story is true, although it's only taking its best guess for what it is. We have to learn to challenge the story, and when we take people through the work of Genesis process, we are telling them that they have false beliefs. False belief is something that we believe that goes against Scripture. So what does the Bible say? How do we replace it? How do we actually begin to live out the values that are presented in the Bible? And that means, are we attending church? Are we opening our Bible and studying it? Are we reading it? Are we participating in a life dedicated to following the invisible God?
Yeah, Harry, I love the components there, and I think for my own story, the things that were missing were, why am I doing this? The vision for what I wanted, and then community. Yeah. And those 3 things, they didn't happen at once. They were built over time.
Yep.
And I mean, you plugged groups, I'll plug groups again. Those things were met in group, actually having true, authentic community that could know the most real and raw parts of myself, parts of the story where it's I've never told anyone this before. Those moments are powerful when we invite others into that part of our story and community, and having the why for why we want to pursue health. And I mean, initially mine was just selfishly not to lose my marriage and my family, but then to have that grow to be no, I want more than just keeping what I don't want to lose.
I remember the first day that you and I met.
I do too. Oh, what a good day
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I was thinking about too, Stuart, that we can get into a belief that the good life would just be my current life without the addictive behavior, whatever it is. And if I could just get that out, the rest is okay. But what we don't realize is that we have settled for, in our addiction, we've settled for a level of relationships that are not near what they can be. We've settled for a kind of marriage that is not near what it can be. We've settled for a kind of parenting and friendship and even our relationship with God that we don't see how much the addiction has been like a poison pill into all of those areas. And I think that's what men and women who don't engage fully in their recovery or bring that passion and energy to it, that's what they're missing, is a lack of willingness to hear others say, it actually gets a whole lot better. And it's worth, because we think, well, if all I'm trying to do is stop masturbating in the shower or stop looking at bad images on my phone, well, yeah, then we're just looking for what's kind of the ideas to help me avoid that behavior, versus if the motive and the goal is to have deeply meaningful, fulfilling relationships everywhere I go, well, that starts to feel like, well, that's worthy of my life pursuit. Like, that's everything. That's what I'm here for. Well, then I would put a whole lot more energy into that. So we might be settling for a version of life that is not near what God has called us for. And if we can be open to that idea that there's something greater we were made for, then I think we're more motivated, hopefully, to do the work it will take to get there.
Absolutely. I'm 74 going on 75. And this year I committed to, as a counselor, I have to have ongoing training. That's something that does not stop. And I took a course from a fellow named Adam Young that was 12 8-hour lectures over the course of a year, the first Saturday of every month, and then 2 hours Q&A. And I learned things about myself this year.
It's a serious
that
commitment.
I didn't know. And I would tell you, I'm so sad that I finished the course because I was getting insight, and as I was writing insights down, someone was speaking something that I probably didn't hear. And I'm going to have to go back through all of those videos and the Q&A times to understand that. But it is a part of the passion to say that Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians that we're to be changed from glory to glory into his image. Well, I tell my friends that I don't want to emotionally, spiritually plateau myself. I've done enough. I want to continue to grow until I physically flatline.
Yeah.
May it be so for all of us.
Harry, you mentioned the faster scale, but one of the first signs of moving out of restoration on the faster scale is overconfidence. What might be a warning sign that we are falling into this?
Well, the overconfidence is birthed out of self-reliance. Okay, it is a part of the healing process requires two emotions that are not particularly honored in Western civilization. One, humility. I never know enough.
Yeah.
There's always more I can learn.
So good.
And that's whether it's talking about me, my wife, my children, or I'm talking about my relationship with God. That no matter what kind of theology you have, you've got holes in it. If God is infinite and we are finite, we don't even know how God and humanity combine together in the body of Jesus. We can take our guess, but we really don't know. So that's where I came up with my Dairy Queen cone chocolate vanilla swirl. That's as close as I can get to how humanity and deity combine together. I don't know better. and I'm looking forward to knowing more.
Yeah.
And so it is my pursuit of my faith. It's the pursuit of how do I have deeper relationships with the people who are important to me, and how do I have a deeper relationship with me. Again, going back to my conscious brain only knows 5% of what my limbic system knows. There are discoveries I still need to make. And that's why just last Saturday I was listening to my last Adam Young, and I realized that I was really good at acknowledging my sin in my addiction. But I was not compassionate to that addictive personality that I had in that moment. I was not kind to myself. I was judgmental of the damage I had done, but I wasn't asking myself the question, what drove this young boy at 5 to start masturbating?
Yeah. What
drove him to think he didn't measure up to his friends? What drove him to think that he feared risking in any form with people, whether it's riding bikes or telling a story on yourself? And why did he always hide his failures? I didn't have compassion for him, and I had to learn. I'm learning to give myself, the younger versions of myself, compassion for their trying to cope. They discovered that addiction allowed me to survive, that I'm here at 74, but it didn't teach me how to thrive. It's my healing process that I went through at Pure Desire. When I came under Ted Roberts back in 1993, when he had just started Pure Desire, or back then for men only. And I have been on this journey of transformation ever since. And to tell you the truth, until I die, I don't want to get off of this journey. And that is how I have transformed my passion from the addiction to the healing, because I am surrounded, both here at Pure Desire and in my home church, I am surrounded by these really quality people who love me, and they love me knowing my entire story and all the ugliness that went with the addiction.
Yeah. You hear that, Stuart? Even as Nashville Nuggets, we can be a part of Harry's story. What I hear you saying, Harry, is how important it is to be a lifelong learner, to stay humble, to stay open to growth. And when we don't do that, we're in jeopardy of being in overconfidence. And some things that came to mind for me, what I've seen in my own story and in group members, would be when they've gone a period of sobriety without relapse, because we think maybe that's the goal. It's like, I've gone 3 months. This is the longest I've ever gone. I think I'm good. And now we're overconfident of like, yeah, people have said it's a 2 to 5 year process, and I've heard stuff about the brain takes time and whatever, but I'm doing better than I ever have. I'm good to go. And then we get quickly into old patterns. I've also seen a mindset that even though we've been in group, even though we've been learning from a curriculum, we start to feel again like, well, I did this. Look what I did. Like, it's been 3 good months because I did the work. And we can kind of shift back into an aloneness mindset of all I really need is me. And I got the little bit of help I needed. Now I'm good to go on my own. And that quickly also has been a recipe for heading back into old patterns. And I think all of that is underrooted by the third thing, which is it reveals that we were just looking for the quick fix. And if I got a little bit of sobriety, like I don't really want to risk, I don't really want to change, I just want the quick fix for the behavior. And that puts us in overconfidence that quickly leads, as Harry brought up, to all those other pieces, because we're already moving away from trusting God and trusting others. And that's what a lifetime of healing looks like, is staying in a place of trust and vulnerability and openness. And we can't do that if we come back to thinking it's about us. So that's where, when we guard against overconfidence, we stay in that place of being humble, being a learner, growing. And that's a mindset we all should have until the day we die.
Yeah. And the second value, I said humility. Nobody knows it all. Nobody can go back out and be self-sufficient. God never called us to self-sufficiency. He's always called us to be dependent on him and interdependent with each other. But the other is that I see a lot of people who life, trying to survive life, they no longer have curiosity. I remember when I was a boy and I had a young cousin visit me, and she was all of 1.5. And my big cousin said, "Why don't you take your little cousin?" Because she was born 10 years after I was to the minute. So I was actually probably 11, but I took her on the grass. Well, she grew up in out of Roseburg at Crater Lake, where there's just cinder. She'd never walked on grass. And I watched the wonderment that this little girl had touching grass for the first time. She at first didn't want to put her feet down on it. And then she got on her knees and was holding it. And then she trying to figure out, is this food? Can I eat it? All of those things. And that curiosity that we have when we were children, we need to ask God to rebirth that curiosity about life, because all of us still need to discover that there's more, so much more, for us to learn about life in him than we presently know. There's always more.
Yeah.
And the joy of learning it becomes the passion.
Yeah. Well, as the self-identified whippersnapper in this conversation, what I'm hearing you guys say is Proverbs says that with pride comes our disgrace, and with humility comes wisdom. And it is our pride that led us into the addiction. It is our pride to say, I've got this. Those are some great examples of like having 3 months of sobriety. I've figured it out. Like, I'm good. Like, our pride will come to our downfall, and having that humble heart to sit there and say, what else, with curiosity, what are you teaching me right now? Like, we need to stay in that posture.
Yeah.
And not leave that posture. Like, just what does it look like to remain humble? That's the question.
And it requires self-awareness, which means we have to slow down and have times of reflection. We have times of processing. There's a book that I use, and it is a calendar-driven book where the author, CSAT from International Institute of Trauma Professionals, he breaks down the healing process into one day at a time. And he every day is a new topic that he talks about. And it takes me 3 minutes as a slow reader to get through it, but I get to put my mind towards that off and on throughout the day. It's like you're taking one Bible verse and soaking in that Bible verse, allowing it to come to life for you, and it's not just words on paper.
No.
It's not a tool to, how many of us have gone through our reading plans for the Bible, and it turns into a task. Well, I've accomplished the task. I've read the scriptures today, and I couldn't tell you what I read. It's our being curious. how do I apply this truth into my life?
Yeah. Yeah, Harry, you've said a lot and you've shown a lot in your story of being a lifelong learner and staying in that place of growth and recovery. And I think it's because you learned a long time ago that it's worth bringing our time and energy into this process. And so as we move to wrap up today, would you close with just some thoughts or ideas of how would you encourage people to bring just as much energy and passion to their recovery as they ever did to the addiction? What are some steps that they could begin to take to do that today?
The first step is saying, if you are married and your marriage is in trouble, you are in survival mode. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're attempting, you're in survival mode. And your marriage can survive. But if you don't go through the process of growing and healing, then your marriage will never thrive. And in your own life, the only place that we thrive is when we are in a community, including our relationship with God. It's in community that people cry with us. We know we're not alone. Or they celebrate us. I just had a client who finished his 1-year program with us, and he's local. And he had tried our counseling program one time before and got kicked out. He finished this time. He went to Arizona, and he had never been a part of a small group. And now he remains in touch with his Pure Desire small group. Wow. But he also got involved in a small group in his local church, and he's now living in Missouri, and he's keeping in touch with his friends. There is a community out there, no matter where you're living. There is a group of people who are interested in what you're going through. And you have to do the heavy lifting in your healing. But there are people around who are cheering for you and celebrating with you, or weeping with you when you go through a relapse, or you end up in a divorce. All of those things can happen. Our walk with Christ is not a walk of that we're in constant serenity. We live in the same fallen world that the unsaved live in, and we have bad things happen to great people. But in the midst of that, God said that he would cause all things to work to good for those who love him, for those living according to his purpose. He will take the thing that you are most ashamed about, and he will use it for your good, and he will use it for the good of others. And I want you to know, you don't have to perform. You already have acceptance. And you show up at a Pure Desire group or counseling, people are going to love you despite knowing everything about you, including your struggle with addictions.
Yeah. I'm trying to say this in a way that's not demoralizing, but our finish line, I would honestly say, is our flat line.
Yeah.
And we see it in our culture, just the people that do not finish well.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be me. And so to think and have a mindset that, like, when I finish group or when I get through my counseling time, that's the finish line. And that's not sanctification. Like, that process will not end this side of heaven. And I will continue to work on that until that last breath. Like, I hope that is the legacy I leave behind.
I hope that's the legacy that Pure Desire leaves behind when God closes the doors on Pure Desire about 200 years from now, unless rapture comes.
Amen.
May it be so. I think what comes to mind for me is that reality that our brain is kind of constantly evaluating if something's worth the risk, worth the challenge, worth it or not. And some of what we may be stuck in is a fear that it's not going to be worth it. And if you could hear anything from the three of us and the countless numbers of people that have engaged deeply in a Pure Desire group for recovery, they would send you a resounding message to say it's worth it.
Yes.
I've never had someone come and say, boy, that time I spent in group was such a waste. Or the time I engaged in my own recovery and self-care was so unhelpful. No, I've never heard that. Now, we can have a counseling connection that wasn't that helpful or a book that didn't connect with us. There might be aspects of something we do that we felt like, well, that piece of it. But in terms of our own effort in our healing and recovery, I've never had someone say they regretted working on themselves. But I've definitely had people come back down the road and say, I wish I would have done this earlier. Yes. I wish I would have trusted you the first time around. I wish I would have taken the steps to not get kicked out of group or out of counseling because I see now how much I need it. And so if you're on that side of it, still wondering, like, is this really worth it? That would be my encouragement to say there are thousands of people that have gone before you and are looking back like that great cloud of witnesses in Hebrews 12 or Hebrews 10 to say, it's worth it. And we're cheering you on. Run that race and go for it because you'll see the value as you continue to engage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's hard to know sometimes, but if we trust and take those steps, I think we can see incredible healing come into our lives. So Harry, thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for encouraging us that this isn't something that's just a one and done, but that when we lean in, when we bring our full selves, staying humble and open to God and others, there's such incredible growth that comes. And so to help people move out of that mindset of maybe just giving the bare minimum, it's about the vision they have for their life, for their future, for their relationships. And I think you've given our listeners a lot of that today. So thanks. We value you and great to have you on again.
Well, and thank you. It is so nice to see the two of you actually face to face and not on a screen.
Yes.
So I'm rejoicing in that.
Awesome. Yeah. Always good to be in the same room. Well, thank you, our listeners. A quick note that I wanted to mention at the end here. This series was inspired by some work that our founder, Dr. Ted Roberts, did that he called the 5 brain bugs. And as we do this series, I want to give you an opportunity to honor his legacy. We have established something here at Pure Desire called the Roberts Counseling Endowment Fund, which is a growing fund with which we use the interest from it to fund counseling scholarships that we just give away all of that interest that's earned. And so it's something that will continue to grow and be used hopefully into perpetuity. And so if you would like to honor Dr. Ted Roberts and his wife Diane and the legacy they're leaving, we'd love to have you make a gift to the Roberts Endowment Fund and help others find the healing that's available through Pure Desire. You can find that at puredesire.org/give and find the endowment scholarship page. So thank you again for listening. If you'd enjoyed today's content, please leave us a like, a subscribe, share it with somebody, invite others into the content because this might be the life-changing message they need today. And if you want more information on Pure Desire groups, resources, or counseling, visit us at puredesire.org. Journey on, my friends. You are not alone.